When setting up for an event, it's always good to be able to set up separate worlds, so your lasers can project into certain zones of the room. So if you imagine you have a small event hall or there's a balcony or something, and that's the only place you can fire your lasers onto for safety reasons, you'd be able to set up different worlds on each laser, so that they can only project to that specific area. Another use case is if you're doing graphics on a screen, you can set it up so that one of your worlds is only for your screen, and then the rest of them can be for standard laser effects. So the best way to set this up, I'm going to program it assuming I've got 3 lasers. So if I go to Show Control Center in the corner, you can see here that we've got all of our laser outputs listed. Although I've not got lasers in, I can still program using this. But obviously it's best to do this in the room when you have a visual and you're able to set it up precisely. Here you can see I've set all my lasers up, so I'm going to use 3. So you can set them all just to projection zone 1, but it's advised to have their own projections for each laser. So once I've selected my 3 lasers, I can come out of here. And then this is how your software would open up as standard. Across the tabs on the top, you can see the scanner settings. So if you click on that, and then on the left-hand side, you can see the scan parameters for your lasers. So you can click on each laser and then set your scan parameter so that your scanners are properly tuned. On the right-hand side, you have the worlds. So you can see here that there's a drop-down menu and there's a lot of free ones. I've set number 4 up as overhead, so that's all my beams that I want to go over the audience. I can set another one up. If I click on number 5, click rename world, and I can say balcony. So if I want all of my laser projections to go to the overhead world, you can see in the bottom left there's a select test picture. If I click on this, a separate window opens. I'll select this test picture so I can tell which way is up, down, left and right, and then click back on my workspace and this will just drop into the background. So if I've got laser 1 selected, laser 1 is set up as my middle unit, I'm able to make changes here, and you can see in the test pattern that it's changing. So if I just press 0.1, you can see I've got a very narrow projection, so it's wide but narrow on the y-axis. I can then move this up above the audience's head or onto the balcony or wherever you'd like it. And you can see that's only affecting one of my lasers. So if I change that to, I don't know, minus 0.8, so it's nice and high, I can then go to projector number 2, and obviously if you had your lasers plugged in, you're in a venue, you'd be able to see this taking effect in real time. So scanner number 2, if I set that to 0.1, and then this to minus 0.8, and again for number 3. So you can see there all of our projection, all of our projectors have been, they're still going to fill the room from left to right, but they're going to be narrow from top to bottom. So that makes it easier to control, especially if you're having to fire onto a balcony or in a low ceiling room. You've also got other geometric corrections on here, like keystoning, pin cushioning. That's more useful if you're trying to fire onto a screen at a strange angle or something like that. So what you can see here, all of my frames, all of my scenes, sorry, if I click on this square, that's abiding to the world setting. If I click on the second one, if I go to our test pic in the background, just close that so it stops projecting the test pic, you can see that the squares are conforming to that world, whereas if I click on this next one, it's not. It's just giving us full size. It's only coming out of one projector. So if I overwrite projector settings, so to do that, I right click on the scene, and then I can overwrite the program routing of the frame. So you can see that the square is listening to the world, but then this one isn't. And that's because when you right click on there, if you double click on your scanner or your frame that you've selected, you can see here on the right hand side there's the world drop down menu, So you can change which world you're sending that to. So if I select overhead, you can see that it's changed in my preview window there. So you need to make sure that all of your frames that you'd like to be in that world have been selected as going into that world. So that you can see both of our frames now go into that same world. And again, any of the others, we just need to right click, double click on here, and then change it to the world that we'd like it to. So a lot of people do set up sometimes a whole separate page for in-air effects, and then a separate page for graphics. If you have multiple things set up, so like this one. So this laser frame here is set to world 1, and there's 2 things coming out of the same projector. So if I right click on this, I can go into here, double click on the first laser frame, change the world to overhead, and you can see I can send one thing to one world. And then if I go to the second laser frame or trick film, double click on there, you can see I can change the world for this one as well. So you can select from any of these. So balcony is just a full size one there. You can see if I change it to overhead, it'll also go there. But that means that you can get the same laser doing 2 different effects into 2 different areas. If you want to set them over multiple units, if I move this slightly so you can see, I can change this laser frame to go to scanner number 2, which typically is in the background. I'll choose 3. So you can see number 1 and number 3 there. I can then change this either from overhead, I can keep it with the same unit, or I can change it to another zone of its own. So this single frame, or this single scene, if you will, is now sending 2 different laser frames, 2 different trick films, to 2 different lasers in 2 different zones, or 2 different worlds, if you will. So it's quite useful, especially in difficult venues with multiple projection zones. Hopefully that helps.